Hi, this is Brockwell for ShinyShiny. Now, I have been carrying this enormous phone around with me all week. This is the Asus ZenFone 6. As the name would suggest, it has a 6-inch screen, which for the record is half an inch bigger than the iPhone 6 Plus. But nonetheless, if I had £1 for every time somebody ran up to me this week and said, "Oh my god, is that the iPhone 6 Plus?" I would probably not have enough to buy an iPhone 6 Plus, but I would have enough probably to buy this, which is £250 SIM-free, so not very much at all. As you can see, this is the black version. It's not a particularly interesting looking phone in itself, at least not in black, but it does also come in gold, white and red. I would hugely recommend getting the red one actually, because Asus mentioned that this back panel here is anodized 7 different ways. I'm not really sure how that works, but it's supposed to give it a metallic sheen. But you can't really see that on the black one, but I do happen to have an Asus ZenFone 5 here for comparison. This is the red one, and as you can see, it's a lot more metallic looking there, and it actually does look quite like metal, which is interesting because it's only soft touch plastic, and that actually just pops right off. Once you take it off, you can see the micro SD slot, the SIM slot. Unfortunately the battery is not removable, but it is a bit of a beast, and battery performance is really good on this phone, so thumbs up for that. But what it's less good for is making calls, mostly just because it's massive, you know, you feel a little bit silly holding it to your head like this. People do stare quite a lot, which hopefully is going to reduce now that Apple have made phablets cool, but nonetheless we are definitely still in staring territory. And it's also not great for using with one hand. I mean, it's kind of obvious, isn't it? You know, my thumb is obviously not going to reach very far in there. But to make up for that, Asus have helpfully included a one-handed mode. It's actually one of the better one-handed modes that I've seen, because it gives you a choice of phone size. So you can have a phone within a phone right here. It just works exactly the same as normal, but you can choose whether you want a 4.3-inch screen, 4.5 or 4.7, and you can switch sides as well, so that's quite nice. It's all quite thoughtful, but it does sort of leave you thinking, do I actually need all this extra screen space? Well, I have found it really, really useful for watching movies, videos, pictures, especially for shopping, for gaming. It's absolutely great for that, and I personally didn't think that I would like having a phone this big. But it's actually been really good. It takes a little while to get used to. It's probably taken 3 or 4 days to get used to it, where I'm used to a smaller phone. I would give yourself a week if you're going to buy this one actually, just to make sure that you're actually happy with the size of it, especially because, you know, you do kind of get hand fatigue with calls because it's massive, and sometimes, you know, if you're trying to lay in bed and you're marathoning a Netflix series and you're just holding it, your hand does get pretty tired. And also just to check how it's going to fit in your pockets and in your bag and stuff like that. Although I do hear that some clothes manufacturers are actually thinking about making bigger pockets in response to their new iPhone, so maybe that's something that you won't have to worry about for too much longer. Now, you probably didn't notice that when I opened one-handed mode I pulled down from the right side of the notifications bar. That is because the ZenFone 6 uses the ASUS UI, which is an overlay on top of Android Jelly Bean. It is only Jelly Bean, although they've told me that a KitKat upgrade is on the way. And one of the things that they've chosen to include in that UI is a split notifications bar. I actually had to Google this to find out how to get to my notifications, because it's not very obvious. But basically, if you pull down from the right side of the bar you get settings, and if you pull down from the left side you get notifications. So it's just a simple change, but it has actually taken me quite a long time to get used to this, just because I guess I've been using Android for a long time, and it's a kind of a difficult adjustment to make on something so basic. But that's one of the things that they've included. And if you have a look in the settings menu just here, as we did before for one-handed mode, there's a couple of other interesting modes in here that I think are useful inclusions. So there's one called reading mode. I'm not sure if you'll see the difference now, but I'll turn it on. So that turns the screen just a little bit darker, kind of tints it sort of sepia coloured, and that's basically to make it easier to read, obviously, on your phone. So if you're going to be reading Kindle books or ebooks or anything like that, or it's late at night or anything, it's just a little bit kinder on your eyes. That's the sort of setting I switch on in Kindle anyway, so I think that's a really helpful inclusion, just to have it in one touch in the settings panel. So I like that very much. And another thing that I like, which I haven't seen before, is glove mode, which, as the name would suggest, allows you to use the phone when you're wearing gloves. Now, because I am a giant nerd, my gloves are already touch enabled, so I can use them with any touchscreen phone, so that wouldn't be a fair test. So instead, I am going to try it with a sock. So you won't be surprised to see that if I try and use the phone with a sock on my hand, it's not going to respond, it's having none of that. But if I go back into the settings bar here and switch on glove mode at the bottom, then all of a sudden I can use the phone with a sock on my hand, which is pretty impressive. It works pretty well, and it's also a very thoughtful inclusion by ASUS, because it means that you won't have to buy those more expensive touchscreen enabled gloves. And it is coming up to winter, but just be aware that if you're holding a phone this size in gloved hands, it might be a little bit slippery, although this phone does have Gorilla Glass on the giant screen, so it'll be more resilient than most. But in the unlikely event that you didn't watch this review to find out whether the Asus ZenFone 6 is backwards compatible with socks, I will put the link to the full text review in the description. Thanks for watching.